Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for your comments and your feedback from the last post I sent out. Today we're going to go back to the fundamentals and we're going to go to project management 101 for those that are completely fresh into project management and you just want to have an idea of what it's all about, what we're talking about. So the first thing we're going to do is define what a project is. Yes, a project, according to the PMI Institute, is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a specific result. That result can be a new service created, a new product created, or you have solved a problem. Most projects come about because you're trying to solve a problem or create efficiency, or improve a process, or produce a product. That's how most projects come about. So for instance, the end-to-end process of getting supplies from your customer, from your vendor to your customer is taking a long time, right? You can set up a project to improve that process of getting the supplies. Building a house could be a project. What are we talking about? When there's a start and there's an end date to what you're trying to do, right? So a project could be anything that you are trying to achieve. It's a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a specific result. Let me say that again. A project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to achieve or create a specific result, right? So as long as you are trying to create a specific result, you can have a project within that, right? And I'm going to talk about the characteristics of a project now. When you get into your workplace, sometimes there will be things that come to your table or to your plate that are not really projects, that should be handled as business as usual, BAU. That is, it's an ongoing activity. It's an ongoing thing that happens every time, maybe like maintenance, maybe simple software upgrades that do not involve a lot of technical terms. So it's really important that you know the distinction, so you know when you're being given a project and when you are ending up with a BAU activity that just needs a little bit of coordination and should ideally come to you. Okay, so to aid your understanding, I'm going to walk through the characteristics, the main characteristics of a project. There are really 5 characteristics of a project, and I'm going to use an example to kind of buttress the points we're making here. So I'm going to use a wedding for an example, just to keep it simple, and I'm going to use the building of a house as another example to kind of show you the difference on what a project really is. So the first characteristic of a project is that it is unique. Usually there's hardly ever any 2 projects that are exactly identical. No 2 weddings are exactly identical. No 2 houses. It might be the swan in the area. It might be the plumbing in the area. It might be the architecture. Projects are unique. There's something that differentiates one project from the other. Even if it's 2 houses, they might not be, they probably will not be completely the same. So projects are unique in themselves. That's the first thing you need to know. Now, projects have a limited time. They have a specific start date and they have a specific end date. Let's use the example of the wedding. You have a start date for when you start planning the wedding, for instance, and when the wedding is completed, when all the activities towards the wedding will be finished. Now, depending on your scope, depending on the plan, your wedding could be finished at the point immediately after the bride and the bridegroom go for their reception, or after the after party has happened. It depends on what the scope of your project is, right? Now, for a house, the project again is, it has a specific start date. When the design of the house is created, you start building the house, and it ends at the point at which you have the house is completed, the keys are ready, just waiting for somebody to move in. So that is your project. Your project, however, could include, again, it's about the scope. The project could be the creation of a whole housing estate, and including the marketing of the housing estate and getting people into the houses. It depends on the scope of your project, and what I've just described might even become a program. It depends, right? But whatever your scope, whatever the scope that has been defined for you, is what will determine the scope of your project, right? A project has to have a beginning and an end date. Very important. The next thing about a project is it always has a defined budget. How much money can you actually spend on this thing? Again, you don't start a wedding with infinite amounts. Usually, if you're the wedding planner, they'll give you a budget. What's your budget? How much are you going to spend for this wedding? It determines what kind of resources we get in, what quality of merchandise we produce. It depends. It determines a lot of things, right? So a project always has a defined budget. How much is available for you to spend on what you need to do? Same thing with the building of a house. You have a budget, how much you are able to spend on your house. Right, before we go to the next point, I hope that's been helpful so far. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, go ahead and subscribe and hit the like button. It helps more people to know about the channel and come and learn about project management. Thank you very much as you subscribe and as you like. Thank you. Now, also, if there's any specific topic you would like me to cover, go ahead and put it in the comments below and I'll get right to it as well. Thank you. Now, the next thing about the project is it has multiple stakeholders, right? It has many stakeholders coming together to build. So in the wedding example, you have the vendors, the wedding cake maker, the cake baker, you have the hall decorator, you have the technical team, the team that will be in charge of the sound, of the lighting, of the video recording. You might have somebody else in charge of the photography. You might have somebody in charge of the wedding reception and the after party. You see so many vendors, so many people come together to make that wedding happen. Yes, you could even have the food vendors. You see there are many stakeholders, including your sponsor, who may be the father of the bride or the father of the groom. And you have key stakeholders like the groom and the bride themselves, right? Same thing as when you're building a house. You will have multiple stakeholders: the plumber, the decorator, the structural engineer, the architect. All of these are key stakeholders that have to be consulted, that have to come together, agree what their part is, the effort required to do their part, the timeline is going to take for them to do their part, and to help you create an ultimate plan for the building of the house. Now, the next thing, and the most important I've left to last, your project must have a clear objective. What is the outcome that you're expecting? What are you trying to achieve? Your projects must have a clear objective. The objective in a wedding scenario is to get the bride and the bridegroom happily married without a hitch, within budget, hopefully, and within the right timelines. Right? That's the objective of the wedding. The objective of building an estate or building a house is to build the house on solid ground, make sure it's livable and safe to live in, and usually up to a particular standard or building code or specific interior design requirements. All of those will be specified in your requirements when you're building a house, but it must have clear objectives. So that the reason why these objectives are really important is you want everyone to be moving towards the same goal, everyone to be focused on the same outcome, right? If your objective is not clear, people will bring things in, people will make suggestions, and when it doesn't line up with the objective, if you're not clear on the objective in the first place, you won't be able to push back. So being clear on what the objective of the project is really, really, really important. So let's recap. The main characteristics of a project are it's unique. It has to have a clear objective. It is time bound. It means it must have a specific start and end date. There's a clear budget, how much you're going to spend on the project, and it has multiple stakeholders. Now, all of these parameters are really important because once one of these parameters change, if your budget changes, reduces, or increases, it has an impact on the whole project, how much you're going to spend. For instance, if you originally thought that for your wedding you had £100,000 to play with, for instance, you've booked a whole band, you've booked the biggest hall in town for the wedding, and all of a sudden your budget is slashed by half. Immediately you're going to go back to the drawing board and decide, what do I need to cut to still be able to have a wedding within the £50,000 budget that I have? You see what I mean? You might have to let go of the band, or you might have to look for a different venue, or you might have to reduce the number of guests that are invited for the wedding. The variables will change and you have to change along with the variables. Or it might be that you have more time to plan. So you can book that favorite artist that you wanted to come and sing at your wedding, which you couldn't do before, or you can book a different venue. You can have a specific person build the house, a specific architect or a specific contractor able to start on building the house. So you see how all of these characteristics end up playing a big role in the actual in the project and in the success of the project. Now, for every project manager, the aim and the desire is to complete your project to time, to budget, and to quality, what the original scope was and the original quality required. And so to do that, you have to have a grip of these three characteristics and keep them in check at all times. Have a grip of your scope and your key deliverables. And when anything changes, you have to take it through change requests, which I will deal with in a different video. I hope that's been helpful to you. If you have any questions, go ahead and put some questions in the comments below and I'll get right to them. Hopefully that's made it really easy for you to understand. I'll see you in the next video.